No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 267. And breaking today, a new Reform UK civil war has erupted over the defection of former Conservative Party chairman Jake Berry to Nigel Farage's party.
If you literally want to design a system to destroy a country, you would struggle to do better. And I know who broke it, because I was there. For 30 years, I supported the Conservative Party.
But high-profile Reform UK figures like Matt Goodwin and Rael Braverman are hitting out at the move as ex-Tory Tim Montgomerie promises more defections. So does this just mean reform? A now Tory 2.0? As Nigel admits he will be to the left of Robert Jenrick on immigration after this bust-up in Parliament.
Does the Prime Minister understand that demand today is even greater than it was back in 2016, and that we demand, the country demands, that you say to the French President, will you shut up? That you say to the French President, we will not accept.
Pathetic all round there. Now, in my digest next, I'll reveal how Tommy Robinson has accused Farage of constantly appeasing Islam because he won't mass deport or ban halal slaughter, as he's said to have stabbed more Reform UK patriots in the back. Then my superstar panel weigh-in. Today, host of If This Is True on YouTube, Bernie Spofforth. And we know him as Addicted to News on X, making his outspoken debut, the political commentator Lee Harris. Also coming up on the show today, the UK is screwed by that little weasel midget French President Macron again with a 17-in, 1-out migrant deal. When will we wake up to the fact the political elites don't actually want to stop this invasion? Narinda Kerr claims Muslim weddings are better than Christian ceremonies as Lawrence Fox hits out at the Daily Mail for its sick coverage of his nuptials. And woke ITV bosses issue a new blow to loose women, with celebrities and politicians banned from the show as insiders predict it's about to be axed altogether. Then in the uncancelled after show on Substack, well, Lady Colin Campbell, she is standing by to reveal explosive new claims about why the late Queen really turned on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. You're not going to want to miss this special episode. Get it ad-free first, live or on demand, over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. We're also going to be revealing today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at the end of the show. Here are your Union Jackass nominees. You can vote for the winner in the live chat on YouTube right now. First up, Lindsay Hoyle, nominated by Jane Kendrick, the Speaker of the House of Commons. For his bias, it's extremely noticeable, and I guess that is in reference, and I think it's completely right to say, in regards to the way that Nigel Farage was allowed to be heckled like that. Ian Dale, nominated by Rovine Street 8071, who says it's hard to believe he is a Tory. I'm not sure his ideas are even small c conservative. This is, of course, after that interview on LBC yesterday in which he said, oh, it just doesn't matter. If you see people not speaking English, who gives a damn? And Jeremy Corbyn, nominated by Claire Whelan for the new party they want to set up and his views on immigration. Remember, I have revealed that at the moment, the leading contender for the name of that party is Hope UK. I'd call it, with Zara Sultana involved, Hopeless UK. Okay, big day. Let's go. What does Reform UK really want to be? Richard Tice, the deputy leader, keeps telling true patriots who want to save the country, like David Starkey, with mass deportations, full-scale revolution, vile broken system, the dismantling of the corrupt deep state, people who want to do that, Richard Tice keeps telling us, just trust us. Don't ask any questions, you little far-right lunatics. Just trust us. But I look at the actions of Reform, who I proudly voted for after being the first commentator to predict Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister by 2029, and I despair at what I believe is a near total capitulation to the establishment and the mainstream media. Now, let me stress, this doesn't make me an enemy of Reform UK, as some people within that party like to claim, but rather a critical friend. Because I believe that so many of us put our faith in a movement that may not be what it seems. Because what else can explain two major developments in the past 24 hours that have rocked even the most loyal reform supporters? First, Nigel Farage admitting he is now to the left of both the Conservatives and the general public on the issue of immigration. Second, the unveiling of ex-Tory chairman Jake Berry as its star signing of this ongoing political transfer window. Only issue is that Jake's Damascene conversion to the right is hard to believe, given he backed the ultra-Tory wet Tom Tugendhat to become leader after Rishi Sunak. Now, Reform leaked this decision to The Sun, and Farage embraced it this way, writing a very brave decision by Jake Berry to join Reform UK. His admission that the Conservative government he was part of broke the country is unprecedented and principled. But I have to be honest, even Reform loyalists are horrified. Suella Braverman's husband, Rael, posted, "Reform must not become Tory 2.0. And Uber Farages, Matt Goodwin, publicly demanded that the party issue these key tests to any Tory losers joining for political expediency. Let me take you through it. Matt Goodwin wrote, "Anybody who defects to Reform should publicly sign an NRA-style pledge card to end mass immigration, leave the ECHR, end net zero, overturn Blairite laws, put the British people first." Problem is, Matt, I'm not even sure Farage wants to end mass immigration anymore. What's so interesting about Goodwin's slight U-turn is that it came just a day after he appeared to question Reform's current net zero immigration policy, declaring on X, "I don't want 1 in, 1 out. I want 1 in, 100 out. Illegal migration must end. It's not fair for British taxpayers." To which I replied, Reform UK's immigration policy is literally 1 in, 1 out. I found my Tusi's take on this interesting. He posted, "Reform, you can't trust Tories even if they say they regret the 14 years in government. Also Reform, well, unless they join us, then the same Tories are brave people who have nothing to do with 14 years of Tory government." But it looks like there's more to come, as Tim Montgomerie went on the British Bashing Corporation's left-wing newslight last night and said this.
Can I ask, are you expecting more defections of this level of profile, if you like? Jake Berry...
I think there'll be bigger ones.
Bigger?
I think there are bigger defections to come that will rock the Conservative Party in the months ahead.
OK.
I hope they won't just come from the Conservative Party. That's my world. That's where I'm more familiar with. Yeah. I hope the party will also attract people from the left as well. Right. But no, there are bigger defections to come.
OK. You're not going to give me any names, are you?
No.
Thank you.
Well, to be honest, at this point, unless it's Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, I'm not interested. But Tim Montgomerie posted afterwards, "I have regular conversations with Tory MPs, peers and ex-Tory MPs who wish to defect. I also talk a lot to Reform Central about which ones would benefit the cause and those that wouldn't." Well, OK, I'll add one more to the list. If you're speaking to people in the Lords, Lord Frost, David Frost, I'd take him. Other than that, not interested. And that's why Rael Braverman, who is Suella's husband, by the way, posted in reply to Tim Montgomerie, "Reform should not become a home for ex-Tory MP failures." So are you convinced that Jake Berry, a Tory cabinet minister twice, is really the right guy to save our country? Here's his pitch.
If you literally want to design a system to destroy a country, you would struggle to do better. And I know who broke it, because I was there. For 30 years, I supported the Conservative Party. For 14 years, I was one of their MPs, sitting at that cabinet table twice. And I want to tell you today, my friends, that I have come to a decision. The old party do not have what it takes to transform our country, to build a Britain we can believe in again. And that's why I've decided to join the Reform Party. It is only Reform and Nigel Farage who can deliver a Britain that we are proud of again. Nigel Farage has always stuck by his principles. Even when it was unpopular, he campaigned for Brexit. We know we can trust him. He doesn't change his views when the political weather changes. And because you know you can trust him, I can trust him too. And that's why I'm going to spend every day campaigning to ensure that Nigel Farage and Reform form the next government of this great United Kingdom.
But to be honest, my biggest concern about Reform UK's move to the left is Nigel Farage now unashamedly embracing this new centrist position. In a major profile, it's worth reading actually, of Robert Jenrick in today's new issue of the left-wing New Statesman, Nigel seems proud of that new positioning. I want to share with you the key passages from the New Statesman. Farage thinks Jenrick will almost certainly end up to the right of him on migration by the next election. I suspect he will probably go further. That's just my instinct for someone who wants to make noise. In fact, the Reform leader thinks he is to the left of the country on the issue. I haven't fought the change itself, provided it comes with integration, he insisted, tacking to the centre in pursuit of power. Still, Farage thinks things have really shifted in the country at large. As he seeks to moderate his image, the country, it seems, is radicalising. So too is the Conservative Party. Well, you can imagine the reaction to that, because Nigel is not even hiding where he stands anymore. Tommy Robinson raged, "So now Farage is saying he's more left-wing than the general public, won't mass deport anyone, constant appeasing Islam, won't ban halal slaughter, and will stab anyone in the back." World by Wolf added, Farage admits that Robert Jenrick would lead the Tories into the 2029 general election on a more right-wing ticket on immigration than Reform. Nigel Farage even says he's to the left of the public on immigration and he doesn't oppose mass migration as long as they integrate. He's lost it. And look, to suggest this is just an issue with the online right, of which I'm now apparently a part, I think that's naive, because Reform's own membership numbers are plummeting, down nearly 10,000 in the past month alone. So I'd argue that there are growing fears Reform may not be able to provide the solution to fixing the United Kingdom, which I know, and you know, is going to require dramatic action. Are Tory failures and trying to outflank Labour on the left really the answer? I say hell no. Now, the Superstar Panel. And it is brilliant to have the host of If This Is True, Bernie Spofforth, back with us today and making his outspoken debut. You'll know him as Addicted to News on X, the political commentator Lee Harris. Bernie Spofforth, Jake Berry, what's he going to offer Reform UK? Why is this meant to be a signing that we celebrate, one of the key architects of the Tories' failure for the past 14 years?
I'm not sure who is celebrating it. I mean, I'm really not. If you look in his constituency, they voted to leave, he voted to remain. And then he decided, oh, all right, I got it wrong, I'll go with what they want. And then if you look at his net zero position, oh, he's all for it. Yet his constituents, Reform is working at 40% in the polls right now. So I don't know, apart from power and apart from being back in government, these people actually want, because nobody is looking at the real problems. He hasn't addressed any of the real issues. How can we possibly take someone seriously who changes their mind over fundamental issues in this country?
Lee Harris, what do you think about this recruitment?
I think it's definitely something to be concerned about. I've met Jake briefly in the green room in GB News. Actually, I did try and convince him to join Reform at the time. I found him to be relatively genuine. I myself have been on my own political journey. I mean, I used to be a Liberal Democrat for my sins. I was heavily involved in the 2010 election, and due to things that have happened in my life and the way that I think about politics, I have my opinion. I've been on a bit, for want of a better phrase, I've been on a bit of a political journey myself. So I'm a lot more receptive to the possibility of people changing their views, especially as time goes on. You know, net zero potentially might have sounded good back then, but of course, as time goes on, you realise how ridiculous it is. So I'm not averse to the concept of someone changing their minds. I'll give you a really good example. Is Robert Jenrick. Now, Robert Jenrick, someone I admire greatly. Now, his nickname in Parliament was Generic Jenrick. The reason he was called Generic Jenrick was because he didn't really have a political philosophy of his own. So, yet both you and I agree, Dan, that if Jenrick was to move across to the Reform Party, I would think that would be fantastic news. And Suella as well.
Totally. And I want to be really clearly, I am not saying that people cannot change their minds. I've made lots of mistakes in my career. I've changed my position on so many things. We've all woken up. It's simply not about being some type of puritanical, oh, you should have always thought this way forever. No. That's not where I'm at, Lee, at all. However, Jake Berry wanted Tom Tugendhat to be the leader of the Conservative Party in the past year. So that's a real concern to me because he is on the left of the Conservative Party. So there does feel like there is a degree of political expediency here. But Lee, can I ask you about this Farage? Well, it's not an interview, is it? He's contributed to their piece on Robert Jenrick, a left-wing magazine, and he has made a distinctly left-wing pitch saying immigration, the Tories are going to be to the right of me. The general population are going to be to the right of me. What is he doing? What is he doing? This is the number one issue. We need mass deportations. It's like, I'm sorry. I like Nigel. I'm friends with Nigel. But what the hell is going on? What is he doing? This is his issue. I'm so concerned.
You know, when you said earlier, I completely agreed with you. He's even affecting some of his kind of loyalists. Now, I would have never really considered myself a loyalist, but I would have certainly considered, and still do consider myself, someone who would support Nigel Farage's historic political philosophy. So even I have had, I'm exactly as you described, my own views have waned very slightly on exactly what Nigel Farage has been saying recently. However, there are two ways that you can look at this. You've got a political strategy point of view. I have absolutely no point, for example, I disagree with Nigel Farage on the two-child benefit cap, for example, but I very much am very liking the fact that messes with Labour's head, and it puts, it kind of parks his tanks in the centre ground as well. And and I know, under this system that we have, the first past the post system, you do have to try and get people to vote for you who don't agree with you. So there is an element of that I do agree with. However, Nigel Farage, I think, has got to be careful because he is swinging that pendulum, I think, a little bit too far to the left. And I've been thinking about this a lot over the last 24 hours. Look at Trump. Look at how Trump has been absolutely solid on his message ever since. You know that Trump believes in what he's saying. He stuck to his message religiously. And part of me thinks that maybe Nigel Farage is just a little bit concerned still, bizarrely, after all these years of not caring what the media say about him, that now he's in the hot seat, potentially about to become the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He's panicking. And
he's obsessed with the MSM. You're completely right. Of course he is. But Bernie Spofforth, I don't get it on the issue of immigration because it's like even Labour supporters, even Lib Dem supporters, you just have to look at the polls, are pro-mass deportations. Nigel is constantly moving to the centre on this issue. Now, this was the number one issue that got Donald Trump back in the White House, right? Protect our borders at any cost, mass deportations at any cost, stop the terrorists coming in, stop the rapists coming in, stop the murderers coming in. I am not hearing that language from Nigel Farage at all. So I'm just being totally honest here, Bernie. This is not like a pro-reform issue, an anti-reform issue. If Nigel goes soft on immigration, both legal and illegal, we need an alternative. That is our bottom line issue.
But I think someone's had a word with Nigel, right? Someone has had a word because you can't do mass deportations. And all the parties are lying. They're all lying to you. We can't get out of the ECHR as easily as people are saying we can, because we're beholden to the banks. We've got £2.7 trillion worth of debt. They control us. Mass migration was a policy to try and counteract the aging population and the huge amount of welfare that we're paying and continue to pay. With us not having enough children and our population aging, that was the original plan. Now, we all know it's screwed and we all know it's not working, but someone's had a word with Nigel to say, you can promise this, but you can't do it. We can't get rid of them. We'll be in court for the next 20 years with all our lefty barristers and our judicial situation, which seems to just follow this liberal international law thing of a global government and a one world, everybody all together, feed the birds. I'd like to teach the world to sing. And somebody has had that conversation with Nigel.
Yeah. Of course, but no one had that conversation with Trump and told him you couldn't do that. And that is the point.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did, Dan. They did.
Well, it didn't work.
Trump doesn't have to play the same game. Trump doesn't have to play the same game as Nigel, because if you look at the US, they are in a far stronger financial position. The dollar is still the world's #1 currency. Britain doesn't have that luxury. We are absolutely owned, absolutely, by the banks and the UN. And that's all the parties are lying to you. There is no growth. There can be no growth. Our jobs are being replaced daily by AI, 33% lower jobs for graduates this year, and it will increase year on year on year. So it would mean that the Tories, Labour, the idiot Lib Dems, Green, I'm not even going to discuss because they're out there somewhere, all those parties would have to sit in front of you and say, no welfare, we can't stop these people coming in, it's over, because that's the truth.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not just going to say, well, we give up. We continue to import the third world. We continue to import terrorist rapists. And so what Nigel needs to be doing is planning, like what Liz Truss wants, a great repeal act, taking back control, truly taking back control, getting the globalists out of this. And at the moment, unfortunately, that's just not what I'm seeing. I would argue, though, the opposition are doing Nigel great favours after what happened in PMQs. Watch this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The main reason that this country decided some of you want to get in a little later. If this takes forever, you won't get in. Nigel Farage. Thank you. The main reason this country wisely voted for Brexit back in 2016, and that included millions of Labour supporters, is because we wanted to take back control of our borders so that we and we alone could decide who comes and settles in our country. Does the Prime Minister understand that demand today is even greater than it was back in 2016, and that we demand, the country demands, that you say to the French President, will you shut up? That you say to the French President, we will not accept undocumented males across the English Channel, and that you are not dictated to by an increasingly arrogant, anti-Brexit French leader.
Zia Youssef, the Reform UK chairman, posted on this. This is the best political campaign ad Reform could dream of. Gratefully received from the political class. Behaving this way toward Nigel Farage showcases the contempt in which they hold the millions of Brits whom he represents. Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Thank you. And Lee, you posted on this. This is an absolute disgrace. Listen to the rude, out-of-touch rabble of entitled MPs at PMQ shouting down Nigel Farage. I can barely hear the question. Lindsay Hoyle has completely lost control. Unacceptable. And it is unacceptable, Lee, but this is one of those rare occasions when I completely agree with Zia Youssef. Like, this is only going to help Nigel. If Nigel is treated by the political class as if he is some sort of extremist, it plays into his hands. The irony is that he's coming totally to the centre, so they're treating him like this extremist when in fact he's nothing of the sort, as we've just discussed.
Yeah, it was absolutely. I mean, I was disgusted by it. I mean, I know there is an element of rabble that you see every week at PMQs, but it does seem that the volume is always slightly higher against just specifically Nigel Farage. And you're absolutely right to say that this will work very well for him. But you know, to sort of say maybe that he is tacking to the left. You are right. The pendulum is swinging a little bit the other way, but I've got to admit, yeah, I was genuinely disgusted by what I saw in Parliament, and I would just be putting that on repeat on a campaign ad, like I think Matt Goodwin was saying, because it will do him no end of favours to see like he's the insurgent party against the elite. It was a despicable display, and it just reminded me. Do you remember during Brexit where it felt like, you know, all 600 MPs were sticking their two fingers up against the public, and it kind of felt like that again, that, you know, Nigel Farage is there representing a certain part of the electorate, and it's almost like they're not attacking Nigel Farage when they do that. They're attacking people like me and, you know, the people on the right who are voting for him. So I found it incredibly disrespectful, but very pleasing in the same respect, because they've stitched themselves up. That's going to work very well for Nigel Farage.
Breaking right now, fury on the left over a Northern Irish bonfire which wants to put the issue of stopping the boats at the heart of the agenda. This comes as this afternoon, Keir Starmer, Slippery Starmer, and that little weasel midget, Emmanuel Macron, have come up with the most crap deal, 17 in, 1 out. So, we're going to debate all of this now, but first let me show you this bonfire video and the outrage around it.
Police are facing calls to remove a migrant and refugee display placed on a loyalist bonfire in County Tyrone. A boat with effigies of migrants alongside the writing "Stop the Boats" appeared on a bonfire in Moygashill overnight. SDLP councillor Malachy Quinn condemned the latest display. He said that he was absolutely disgusted to see yet another overtly racist and threatening display appear on the bonfire in Moygashill.
Well, they might be disgusted, but this is the whole issue. That the political class and the elite class care more about a bonfire trying to make a point that we've got to stop this illegal invasion of our southern border than they do the illegal invasion of our southern border. And remember, those people in that bonfire, and I will point out that the left have never had any issues with bonfires of Boris Johnson or Donald Trump or Nigel Farage. They don't care when it's white men, effigies of white men going up in flames. But remember, these people who are coming across on the boats are criminals, are in many cases people who literally want to blow us up, who literally want to rape our wives and our sisters and our mothers, who literally want to murder us on the streets of Sadi Khan's London for a Rolex watch. So forgive me if I cannot buy into the moral hysteria over a bonfire. And of course, what we've seen this afternoon at Downing Street is a complete capitulation yet again from Slippery Starmer. Now, this was predicted. If you saw the front pages of the newspapers this morning, we knew we were not going to get a good deal, because what this apparent one-in, one-out deal actually means is that we take in 17 illegals and the French take back 1. But Starmer has just spoken at a press conference in the past few minutes and claimed that this is going to make all the difference in the world.
So I'm pleased to announce our agreement today on a groundbreaking returns pilot. For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks, and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain, and the jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist.
As Will Kingston posted on X, I had to check this wasn't satire. It's not. Chris Rose added, Keir Starmer is set to agree 17 in, 1 out migrant deal with France. Starmer is the worst negotiator in history. Britain always loses whenever he negotiates. This would amount to 95% of illegal migrants crossing the Channel staying in Britain. And the reality is that this is all because Macron is a treacherous little weasel who wants the United Kingdom to suffer, who is doing this for domestic political gain, and Starmer refuses to accept that. So we have rolled out the red carpet for an enemy. And at this press conference in the past few moments, Starmer decided to get a little bit mad when someone in the MSM actually pointed this out to him. Watch.
You said during your opening address that since January the numbers have dramatically risen, and they have. Whose fault is that, yours or the man standing next to you?
Stefan, firstly, in response to just the last bit of your question, we both have a responsibility together to solve this. And one of the problems, to my mind, in the past has been the finger-pointing, the blame game, the megaphone politics, which has achieved precisely nothing on this and many other issues, which is why we've never engaged in it. It is why the EU-UK reset was a success, because I said at the outset we're not going to engage in the politics of finger-pointing, blaming, and going to the nearest microphone to disparage our partners. And it's exactly the same approach that I take with Emmanuel on this issue. It is both of our responsibilities. I'm not.
To my superstar panel we go, Bernie, Spofforth, and Lee Harris. So, Bernie, this burning of the effigies in County Tyrone, why are the left getting so up in arms about it when they haven't given a damn about doing the same thing when it's Farage or Trump?
Because it's one of their, little projects, right? They love all this mass immigration stuff. You look at, they were completely fine at Glastonbury. They were completely fine to burn effigies of Katie Hopkins on a bonfire. Did you see her post earlier? Hilarious. They were completely happy to do that. But wasn't it the left who wanted to ban having Guy Fawkes on bonfires? Yes, I think it was. It's so completely hypocritical. The small boat situation is utterly out of control. And in Ireland, where that bonfire is, the situation is even worse than it is in the UK, if that's possible. And nobody is being listened to. Anybody who raises the subject is, of course, a bigot and a racist. And I think it's ludicrous. Look, I probably would say that the bonfire is a little bit dangerous because every year it's enormous, right? That's my biggest problem, not the thing they have on the top.
Lee, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I find the hypocrisy utterly hilarious. I mean, we've seen it before with the left, haven't we? As everyone's already said, they're quite happy to burn whoever they like, but as soon as you pick something that's close to their hearts, we're all hell breaks loose. So I genuinely have found it quite funny, but I'm also kind of pleased that they're doing it because, as Bernie said, this is a really, really big issue, and and hopefully things like this will keep it in people's minds that, we have had enough of this. And I think this is why we are starting to see a change in the political landscape now. People are much happy to consider voting for a third party. They're just fed up with it. We look at the Red Wall. The Red Wall don't really have any loyalty anymore. And it's issues like this that are being raised, potentially by these things, like having a massive bonfire does bring attention to it. So I'm pleased in some respects that this is happening because yet again it's bringing attention to a subject which doesn't actually need a huge amount more attention, to be honest. It is one of the biggest things that the British public are talking about. And it's one of the things that, I mean, I found the whole thing with Macron and Starmer, they're very similar people. If they really wanted to stop the boats, everyone knows that we could do it within 5 days. We had the French Navy in the Channel today escorting another migrant vessel over the Channel. You know, all we need is another vessel, another Navy vessel in the Channel, and they could cooperate, and within 24 hours they could stop these boats coming across. You'd only need to do that for 5 days, and they just wouldn't bother doing it, because they know they couldn't get past those naval vessels. So that's what frustrates me about this. I think Keir Starmer put out a tweet saying working together for working people or something. Well, I couldn't help myself. I had to reply to say, you're not working together to help working people. You're working together to facilitate illegal migration across the Channel. And that is exactly what they are doing. We all know that Macron wants as many of those migrants out of France as possible.
Yes.
And he knows. And, you know, Starmer completely misunderstands Macron and the French in general. You can roll out the red carpet to the French. You can give them the thick end of £1 billion. You can arrange a state visit and they will lap it up, but it will never, ever change their views. They'll give us absolutely nothing. This New Deal, complete waste of time. It was pathetic in the first place. We have such a high acceptance rate for these migrants that they're just going to be accepted in anyway. It's going to be 1 in 17 in by the time they finish just allowing everyone to access our asylum system, because they know there's a very high chance they're going to get accepted anyway. So the whole thing is a charade, and I find it insulting, Dan, that they're even trying to sell this like everything else they try and sell the British public. It's all a lie. It's all a complete load of nonsense. This country needs to stand up for itself and believe in itself. And part of that is protecting our borders. And they just won't do it. We've had 14 years of the Conservatives, 13 years of the Labour Party prior to that. If they were going to do something about it, they would have done it already. I'm done with both of them.
Yeah, I completely agree with him. I completely agree with you. Starmer and his little globalist, I want to be on the world stage. He's decided that Britain also has the problem. Well, we don't. We're an island. We don't have the problem.
Well, talk about our king, you know, our king, because it's like, if we have no borders, Your Majesty, then you have no kingdom. You're out of a job. Let's think about that. But Benny, what did you make of the very obvious annoyance from Slippery Starmer at that press conference? He just hates reality being pointed out, doesn't he? And he thinks that trying to pretend that he has a close personal relationship with Macron, which may well be true. I mean, lots of people have spoken about just how close these two are. Okay, fine. He's not getting the policy that we need.
But he was never going to. That isn't what Starmer believes in, is it? This 1 in, 1 out, 17 in is a complete joke. As they come into this country and they are accepted into this country, it changes them into legal migrants, so we can never get rid of them. Everything Starmer does is incredibly arrogant. It's his belief. It doesn't matter what the people think. He doesn't listen to the people. And if you look at what he's done with his Attorney General today, it means that effectively we have a civil servant now in charge of every minister and every department in the entire government. So all the time, if you have a new government, like Labour, for example, you do need to write some new laws. You might have to bend a couple of laws, like with the Chagos Islands. We didn't need to follow that international decision. We just decided to. Well, the Attorney General has now decided that any minister that looks like it might be wanting to break the law to change policy, and it'll include all of these illegal migrant policies, have to go through him first. So he can effectively veto decisions made by politicians. That's not democracy. And I don't think Starmer likes democracy. I think Starmer wants things done the way the UN dictate, the way the EU dictate. And we know that Macron has already said today, when are you coming back to the EU? We want you back in the EU. Well, hold on a minute, mate. We had a democratic vote on that and we left you. That's it.
And obviously, Lee, the story that I think has horrified most of us today is of this man, Blue Stevens, 26 years old. Here he is. And last night, he was wearing his Rolex watch outside Park Tower Hotel and Casino. Now, that is in Knightsbridge in London, one of the most exclusive parts of London. I was actually having dinner just down the road at that same time, and he was stabbed to death for his Rolex watch. And just before we came on air, I felt like I had to say something about this. So I posted of Sadi Khan, under this truly evil man, London, the world's former greatest city, is now completely unsafe. Step out on the streets with a phone in your hand, you'll be mugged. Step out with an expensive watch on your wrist, you'll be killed. F you, Sadi Khan. This is on you. Time is up. And I feel like, Lee, we obviously don't know the circumstances yet, but I feel like this is going to be one of these crimes that really resonates because it is so indicative of the fall of not just London under Khan, but the United Kingdom under Labour.
I couldn't agree more with everything you've just said. I saw this story briefly earlier, and like many others that saw it, it's really hit home. Sadiq Khan's London. I mean, I've been spending quite a bit of time in London myself recently, and even I've noticed it. It's not a safe place anymore. It's gone massively downhill over the years. And what happened to this poor lad should not be happening to anyone. I think it wasn't that long ago. It made me think actually that we had those videos being pumped out by the Met who cracked down specifically on these watch thieves. I think it was 6 months ago or something like that. But it clearly hasn't stuck. And just like everything else with Sadiq Khan, the only thing Sadiq Khan is interested in is Sadiq Khan. He's probably one of the biggest narcissists apart from Keir Starmer that we actually have in UK politics. He has absolutely no interest in keeping people safe. All he is interested in is self-publicising. The man is an absolute disgrace. He is destroying London, and I just can't understand. I can understand why he keeps getting elected, but we need to try and stop that from happening in future, because the man is utterly tearing London apart. Everything that we hold dear in this country is slowly being lost, and it's people like Sadiq Khan who are making it happen. You know, I feel a bit worried about bringing my 9-year-old daughter to London now, who she absolutely loves London. We want to take her back to do the Tower of London and do more stuff like that. But even I'm on edge about, bringing my daughter to London.
It's terrifying. And Bernie, look at this young dad, 26 years old, and he's murdered on the streets of Khan's London for his watch. And by the way, anyone who says, oh, these are freak crimes, these are not freak crimes. No. I have been mugged for my phone twice in London, totally non-violent, but still an absolutely horrible experience. On a third occasion, I had two guys on a motorbike completely covered in black pull up and try and get my phone. I didn't let them on that occasion because that's your instant reaction. But this guy who would have had the exact same reaction, Blue, has been killed. So this happens all the time. My fiance's sister had just traveled down on the train from Scotland. This was a couple of weeks ago. And she literally stepped out on the street of London for the first time since arriving from Scotland. This was in Mayfair, and her phone was swiped from her hand, and the security guards all around her, because she was outside some sort of restaurant, just said, don't even bother, don't even bother, don't even call the police. This is the problem. No one even calls the police. We are now lawless. London is now a lawless city, Bernie.
I agree. And you would expect, wouldn't you, as a country, that the government would stage an intervention, right, at some point. Because if I was in charge, I'd be taking that £22 billion we're giving to make carbon capture machines, and I'd be building a massive prison, because All of these people need to be put away. There is no deterrent. People get slapped on the wrist. Today, we're told that, oh, if it's just a mugging, then, you know, maybe there could be some other restitution. Well, that means that crime absolutely pays. And all we'll do for this poor young dad is, you know, we'll sing some songs, we'll have a vigil, we'll light some candles, and then we're not allowed to talk about it. And it's got to stop. Who is going to stop the violence in London? Who is going to make a stand? Because it isn't going to be Sadi Khan and it isn't going to be this government. And frankly, I don't hear any other party talking about it either. It's got to stop.
Absolutely heartbroken about this story. I couldn't agree more, Bernie. It has to stop. But of course, that's why mass deportations, the end of the invasion, all of this is linked. And that is the problem. Until people start realizing that all of this is linked to that issue, our open borders, it won't stop. Breaking today, hard left influencer Narinda Kerr has sparked outrage for suggesting that Muslim weddings are better than Christian ones, as her arch nemesis Lawrence Fox has responded to the Daily Mail's sick and twisted coverage of his own nuptials. So let me take you through the story. Narinda Kerr tweeted, or posted on X, I should say, sorry Elon, Muslim wedding plus no alcohol equals maximum fun. Kids and women feel safe and see no danger. English, Indian, Irish, Scottish weddings, alcohol necessary just to be able to converse and have some fun. Doesn't that tell you a lot? She then posted this video. Watch.
Hey, I'm just on my way home from a wedding, a Muslim wedding. And what struck me was, obviously there was no alcohol at this wedding. And I'm used to Punjabi weddings, English weddings, where obviously alcohol is consumed, especially in Punjabi weddings, a great deal. And here, Muslim wedding, no alcohol, yet adults were capable of having fun, conversing, communicating, having a thoroughly good time without the need for alcohol. And it just makes me think, why can't we be like that? Why do we have to always have alcohol? This was just an eye-opener for me. It was like, wow, a whole wedding party, a whole lot of fun, zero alcohol.
Steph, the Alter Nerd, replied to that saying, is the implication here that the majority of English, Indian, Irish, Scottish weddings are unsafe due to the consumption of alcohol that occurs at these events? If so, that does tell me a hell of a lot. To my superstar panel, Bernie Spofforth of If This Is True, and Lee Harris. He is Addicted to News on X. Lee, is Narinda Kerr doing that thing here, troll harvesting, where she's looking for people to hate on her? Or is she just being completely delusional here? Because remember, there is a reason that it is bad to live in a society where what you do is controlled.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit of both. I know Narinda a little bit, and she definitely is. I think there's a little bit of clickbait in this at all. But do you know what my instant reaction was when I first saw that video? I think it actually says a little bit more about Narinda than it does about what the subject matter that she's talking about. So is it really true that Narinda maybe thinks the only way that she can have fun is by having a drink? Because really, I don't think most people think about it. I certainly don't. You know, I'll enjoy a drink like I did this weekend, Dan. But I don't have to have a drink to have a good time. You know, it wouldn't have changed the afternoon. So I just thought to myself, maybe Narinda is going through a moment where she's having a word with herself through the camera, where she might just think, maybe I should just drink a little bit less, possibly.
Yes, I did see Lee at Nana Aquare's engagement party on Sunday evening. I have to say, a few beverages were consumed, but Bernie Spofforth, I just feel like Narinda wants to do whatever possible now, having previously, by the way, been an outspoken critic of Islam. I feel like she now wants to do whatever possible to try and suggest that the cultural domination of Islam over Christianity is a good thing. And fine, it might be troll farming, but it's dangerous. It's morally wrong. It's reprehensible.
It does feel it did feel to me like what she was trying to say was, we'd all be much better if we followed these rules. We'd all be much happier. And exactly as you said to start with, and the person who wrote the post is saying, is she actually saying that people have no agency for themselves and that they should follow these new laws that tell us what we can do and what we can't do? And it's totally ludicrous because we are our own people. We do have agency. I was very lucky to be at Lawrence's wedding at the weekend, and I saw no one drunk. I literally did see no one drunk.
Really?
Everyone had a few drinks. Everyone had a nice time. I didn't even drink after that. I cannot believe you showed that picture. You're dead to me, Daniel. Dead.
You look absolutely stunning. Well, look, Bernie, seeing you've gone there, we've got to talk about Lawrence Fox's wedding. Okay, we have to talk about, and given you were our source on the ground, you can clear some of this up. But Lawrence has actually had to come out publicly and clear it up too, because look at my revolting former employer, the Daily Mail. Look at how they chose to cover this joyous event. Lawrence Fox holds second wedding ceremony with conspiracy theorist podcaster Elizabeth Barker, as couple are joined by friends including Julia Hartley-Brewer, Holly Valance, and controversial priest Calvin Robinson. Now, that is clearly a despicable way for the mainstream media to cover such a brilliant event. We all know that Lawrence's lovely new wife is certainly not a conspiracy theorist. As soon as the mainstream media start using that term, you know what it means? They're scared of her because she's been telling the truth all of these years. A conspiracy theory these days is a fact in a couple of years' time. I actually try and not use the term because this is what the MSM do. But Lawrence Fox has hit back, Bernie, in quite spectacular fashion at the Daily Mail and the reporters who wrote that article, posting, "Dear Juliet Conway and Tom Cotterill, I know you are probably either working for free or on less than £15,000 a year, but I like to help where I can. We wouldn't want your parents having to pay your rent forever. My wife's name was Elizabeth Logan, not Barker. It's now Elizabeth Fox. I know it's put you in a right old pickle not being able to slag her off because she's mixed race and therefore you can't plink away on your sticky little hand-me-down laptops about racism or some such, but your bigotry really does shine through. You enjoy demeaning people who aren't all shiny white privilege like you. Picking on people of colour whilst pretending to be woke and anti-racist, you are the exact thing you accuse others of. Good news is that we all know your game, and when your little apprenticeships go pop and you start looking for another job because AI can do it better in less than a millisecond, you'll only have who you are and what you've done to fall back on. It doesn't sadden me to say that I suspect your future prospects in journalism are not looking good. Brown nosing to your boss's full marks. Talent in regurgitation of racial stereotypes, full marks. Talent in journalism, not so much. So you carry on writing your little articles. Oh, and if I were you, I might check some of your reporting around the legal cases. You might find something interesting there, a gift from me to you in between bouts of being sent to Boots to buy tubs of hemorrhoid cream for your flatulent and obese 65-year-old sub editors. We aren't conspiracy theorists because we think the climate emergency is a scam. And fortunately, we are far, far less likely to die of some extremely rare cancer or heart problem because we didn't get all worried about the runny nose season of 2020. I suspect the same may not be true of you two little triple boosted darlings, but we wish you well. Oh, quick final question. Your profile picture intrigues me, Tom. Are you a trans man? Anywho, have a lovely day. Now, Bernie, you were at this wedding. And so how do you contrast actually what happened on the day compared to this scumbag hit piece from the Daily Mail, which has just decided that because they're part of the establishment and the establishment now hates Lawrence Fox, they're going to try and destroy Lawrence Fox too, which means we have to destroy his mixed race wife as well and lie about her and call her the wrong name and just suggest that she's the conspiracy theorist.
I think it's very sad because it was a very beautiful wedding. There were lovely people there, people who genuinely care about Lawrence and Lizzie and just want them to be happy. And I know, and you know, that both of them have been under considerable pressure, particularly from the media. And I don't, it's something I don't do. I don't personally attack people. And for them to do that on this special day is just evil. It's absolutely wrong. And I think they've missed their audience, because actually, I think they're great photos. And I think most of the Daily Mail readership would have thought, well done, Lawrence. Hope you're happy, mate. Because why wouldn't they? You know, you're right. A conspiracy theorist today is just right in 6 months' time. And he might be a bull in a china shop. We know that. He loses his temper. I get that. But do you really have to try and destroy something as beautiful and as lovely as getting married?
Oh my goodness, I could not agree more. Lee Harris, Bernie is so right, isn't she? You have to be a pretty twisted media organisation to decide we're not going to celebrate a marriage. We're not going to celebrate a union between two people who love each other. And by the way, these two people really love each other because what they have come through is total deep state annihilation of them individually. That, trust me, that's a really difficult thing to come through. And if you can get through that as a couple, then I think you can get through anything. So I think there's much more hope, actually, that this union will last forever for Lawrence, unlike his first union with the very woke actress Billie Piper. But it really does say something about the Daily Mail, doesn't it, Lee Harris, that they would try and turn a positive event into something so negative. And also the fact that they now view Lawrence Fox as the enemy. Like, I thought the Daily Mail, and certainly when I worked for the Daily Mail, I thought the Daily Mail was on the side of the people. One of the reasons why I joined the Daily Mail in the middle of the COVID pandemic is because I was able to question the narrative. But something has changed at that publication. I actually know quite a lot of what's gone on behind the scenes. There's this brilliant former editor called Martin Clark who created the Mail Online, and he was forced out, and there's been a change of editorial position. But people don't really care about that. I think what people care about is they see the mainstream media using a wedding to try and destroy someone. It really is sick. And I think it is why the independent media is so much more important these days.
I could not agree more. And one thing that I've noticed about Lawrence, I don't know Lawrence very well, but I've done quite a lengthy one-on-one podcast with Lawrence. One thing I'll say about him from my personal dealings with him, he's a very genuine person, and everything that he says, he absolutely means. And one thing that you can tell about the relationship between the two, I just from a completely observation point of view, I don't know them like Bernie, but they do seem very much in love. It does seem like a very genuine relationship, and it's a massive cheap shot by the Daily Mail. And I actually don't think this is the first time we've done it, because I think Lawrence has brought it to us. They've called her a conspiracy theorist before, and it's like, you know, they're using it to insult her, and I just think that's absolutely disgraceful. And as Bernie said, you know, leave him alone on his wedding day, for goodness sake, at the very least. And I found the whole thing very distasteful, and I actually got to admit, it made me laugh out loud. I thought that response that Lawrence wrote was absolutely brilliant. I was laughing my way through it, but you know, he handles it well. I know that he won't let this affect him. Certainly from the few minutes I've known, he seems to be very resilient person. So I'm hoping this won't affect him. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything that's already been said. I think it's a cheap shot. I don't know what has happened to the Daily Mail, Dan. You're absolutely right. It's all over the place at the moment. Sometimes I think I'm agreeing with them on certain things, and in other place, they are genuinely, I don't think they have a political philosophy anymore anyway. No. It's bizarre. But yeah, I think it is a real shame. And like Bernie said, they should be leaving this lovely couple alone on their wedding day, and just leave her alone. Stop attacking her.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Lawrence Fox is not the enemy. Elizabeth Fox is not the enemy. Like, she's really not, and he's really not. And actually, you should be more concerned, Daily Mail, about the lawfare against Lawrence Fox and what that means for society. Because trust me, at some point it will be your columnists who they start to come for, and you should think about that. Bernie, give us some gossip from the wedding. Okay, I heard that Julia Hartley-Brewer and Charlie Sansom were the last on the dance floor. I got that little nugget, but come on, what was it like?
Absolutely true. I can confirm that. I can confirm, though, that during one of the ABBA songs at about 11 o'clock, Julia just could not stand up to do it anymore. She'd been dancing in her high heels. So that's the only gossip. Apart from that, my lips are completely sealed. Everything that's went on at the wedding stays at the wedding.
Okay, good on you. Good on you. You're very, very trustworthy. And congratulations to Lawrence and Elizabeth Fox. It looked like an absolutely incredible day. And of course, Father Calvin Robinson, our Father Calvin Robinson, conducted the wedding, which was absolutely lovely. And I think there had to be a venue change in order to make that happen. But so lovely because, of course, they are BFFs. Breaking today, loose women in turmoil, as the ITV daytime show is now headed to the axe for good in just 12 months, as bosses at the embattled channel ban all guests from appearing on the show whatsoever in the latest desperate bid to save money. Now, of course, this is the ultimate example of go woke, go broke. Loose Women used to be an absolutely brilliant, lovable show in the days of Carol McGiffin and Sherry Hewson and Linda Ballingham and Jane McDonald. I mean, I could go on, right? It was a show for the working classes. And what we have seen in recent years is Loose Women has decided to look down on its audience and try and treat its audience as a group of people who need to be educated. And indeed, I thought we saw a brilliant example of that just this week when Charlene White totally misread the room. Because when we were all thinking about those people who were blown up by Islamist extremists on 7/7 and what that meant for the capital city, Charlene White decided to lecture us about the fact that actually we should be much, much more concerned about Muslim folk who may have been impacted as a result of some very understandable natural social anxiety. Watch.
I just wanted to say one thing that sometimes is forgotten in the story is what it was like in the years, months, years, weeks following that attack, just how difficult it was for anybody Muslim living in this country. And I had friends that would sit on trains and people would physically move away from them on trains. And it was a really hard period for them. And so, yes, we did have solidarity, but we can't forget those for whom they were not afforded that solidarity.
Just says it all, doesn't it? Just absolutely says it all. And I believe it is a type of woke indoctrination which Loose Women has been attempting to conduct on its viewers. And so one of its viewers said, hell no, we're off. And that's why their ratings are down 50%. And that's why they've now been effectively axed for half of the year. And that's why they're no longer going to be able to attract any big name guests. Carol McGiffin, who made her debut here on Outspoken, I'm very excited to say she'll be coming back regularly later in the year, recently told me exactly how it happened and why she is so disappointed.
And you don't want to put the telly on and have a load of 4 women talking about everybody's having a bad menopause. Not everyone has a bad menopause. And if you're having a bad menopause, well, you know, you want to be cheered up. You want to forget about it. So let's put daytime TV on. And all you've got is these, you know, grizzling, snivelling people. Everyone's crying. Everyone's upset. It's like it's celebrating victims. That's what it's doing. Loose Women never used to do that. It used to celebrate strong women. And they were all strong women. Now it's like, you know, let's get a victim on. Let's get someone who's something terrible has happened to them. And it's almost every single day. It's like, you know, it's just taken all the fun out of it. And it's no wonder people are switching off. And so they've got to go back on to 30 weeks a year. I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did in that format, because most of the time I find it pretty unwatchable.
To our superstar panel, Lee Harris, Bernie Spofforth. Look, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because unfortunately, TV is no longer, well, actually, I would say fortunately, unfortunately for them, fortunately for us, TV is no longer able to have this monopoly position where people are forced into watching content that simply doesn't align with their values. Do you agree, Bernie?
Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
Our very own loose women.
Actually, I do have to say that I have an office at home, and often I'm in the kitchen at lunchtime and I'll put Loose Women on, right? And I am always forever shocked at how appalling it is. And I actually watch it as a bit of a guilty pleasure because it's terrible. And the worst episode I saw when I thought, no, it's over now for this show, they really should can it, was during COVID. Well, it was when they were all sat really far apart. So we were half in of lockdown, half out. And they actually modeled dresses with built-in COVID masks. I was like, it's so over. It's so over for this show. And I know, look, it's very sad when people lose jobs and they lose incomes. And particularly for those women, it is very difficult. What show do they go on? That's the only one of its type. And of course, I feel sorry for people losing income, but then I have to bat it back to them and say, it is commercially unviable. You have lost your audience, and that is on you presenters. And yeah, I know they have a load more rules that they have to behave themselves with now, but it's down to them. And if there are no viewers, that's on their shoulders.
Indeed. I mean, during COVID, that's when Carol McGiffin had enough. Because they were conducting segments like this. Watch it. Stacey Solomon. Our tips for showing emotion behind a face mask. Whereas actually, of course, what Loose Women should have been discussing is we don't need to be in these face masks at all. And that's the problem. It over that period proved that it was just an extension. ITV Daytime was just an extension of the deep state. And as a result, people had turned off because they realized this actually isn't entertainment, right? This is actually serious, and it's really, really damaging what they're doing. Lee, do you shed any tears for the Loose Women? Actually, before I come to you, Lee, because let me just show you, Nadia Sawalha has been in tears about this act scene. Watch. We'll come back to that, Lee, but you come in now.
No, not a single tear has been shed, Dan. I can assure you that is the case. But I've watched a little bit of Loose Women, but I don't watch it regularly, and I haven't watched it for a while. But it's fascinating to listen to Bernie talk, and especially the way you're describing it. To me, this is just like another kind of example of how the kind of champagne socialist elite have completely lost touch with the British people and what British people want to watch. And like you rightly pointed out, the media landscape is completely changed. It's been changed for a long time now, in my view. People are much more likely. I mean, I'm an example of this myself. I do not watch as much mainstream television as I used to. In fact, far from it. I don't even think I've watched anything on the BBC, no dramas or documentaries or ITV or Channel 5. I forget that channel even exists. But people's tastes are changing. There is a lot more accessible thing and things that will you want to watch, and the views that you want to be reflected on YouTube and independent media, like the channels like these, where you can get a much better feeling for what people are really talking about. And it seems to me that they're just so out of touch. Mainstream media is dying. That's the way. I'm actually surprised that it's been going on for so long. But I suppose when you tell me that a long time ago they didn't used to be so woke, but it is so true. It is so true to say that go woke, go broke is a real thing. People are fed up of it now, and you can almost extrapolate this to people's voting patterns as well. I know I've mentioned it before, but people are changing the way they're thinking about politics. They're changing the way they're thinking about the information that they receive. This is probably the only optimistic thing that keeps me going at the moment. The British public are changing. We are waking up. It's taking a long time, but it really does feel like we are. And this is part of it. If we're finding that the British people are running away from things like Loose Women because they're finding it a bit too woke and not representing the things that they're talking about, that is it. That's what's happening. Yes. Not just in media, but it's happening across all aspects of society. And my only hope is that it continues and we see much more of it. And that's telling the elites, just like voting for another party, by switching things off like Loose Women, They're going to get the message eventually, but I don't think they've got it in time. I think they're too late down. I think they've already lost.
So true. It's like we're waking up. This was Nadia in tears, by the way.
Moment, all of us on screen are in work and are proud of what we do. But behind the scenes, there are people that are really suffering. And what you don't realise is when you attack the show, you attack them. Because you never see all the army of people behind the scenes and how hard they work. So to all my friends and colleagues behind the scenes that just got the most huge shock out of the blue, I'm so sorry. And Mark knows, don't you, how much of how upset I've been at home about it. I just can't bear it. So just be kind to people.
Well, they're not going to be happy with this in the Daily Mail today. Exclusive. Loose women ready to axe celebrity guests after ITV shake-up amid growing fears the show could be cancelled within a year. They report loose women are expected to axe celebrity guests from the show amid growing fears the ITV staple could be cancelled. The long-running series usually welcomes a host of celebrities onto the panel to promote upcoming projects and have had the likes of Naomi Campbell, Elizabeth Hurley, Joan Collins, and even former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak appear. But according to insiders, once ITV's budget cuts come into effect in January, Loose Women will no longer have A-list guests in the studio, and the broadcasters plan to only consist of the panel debating newsworthy topics from the week. Now, TV sources have claimed that Loose Women is predicted to be completely cancelled within the year, as viewing figures are expected to drop once the show's quality is reduced. It comes after Mail Online revealed that the show has axed their studio audience, an integral part of the programme, which caused upset among several members of the long-standing cast, including Nadia Sawalha, Ruth Langsford, and Colleen Nolan. A TV source revealed not having guests is a big blow for both the presenters and viewers at home. The guests are often one of the highest parts of the show, so it feels like a very strange decision to cut them all together. Instead, the focus will be on guests for Lorraine and This Morning. Behind the scenes, the presenters are really upset because they love having guests on and feel they offer a different type of interview to the other daytime shows. First, there are 4 hosts conducting the conversation, and secondly, they use their interviews to discuss female-focused issues, something shows like This Morning don't do as often. In recent years, Loose Women has welcomed Elizabeth Hurley, Joan Collins, and have sat down one-on-one interviews with Janet Jackson and Naomi Campbell, who all chose to do their chats with the show because they love it. Janet Jackson, does she really love Loose Women? Not sure about that. It's a real shame that in January the programme will become a shell of its former self before it's inevitably cancelled altogether. Mail Online understands that the reason for Loose Women axing celebrity guests is because there simply won't be enough manpower to host visitors, and their decision have been to prioritise Lorraine and This Morning. So by default, the panel show will ultimately miss out. An ITV spokesperson added the Loose Women team is still working on the show and its content for next year. Now, Bernie Spofforth, this is something we're seeing all across the media, right? The mainstream media are dying. Sometimes they don't know it yet, but we've witnessed it in America too, where CNN and MSNBC are absolutely cratering and having to sack staff, and their companies have been spun off because they are like the past, and the new media just doesn't want to be part of it anymore. So I shed no tears. The people who Loose Women viewers really want to hear from will be able to go independent and will be able to launch their own YouTube channels, and then people have a choice. I mean, this idea that we should feel like sad that ITV, woke ITV, is not going to be the gatekeeper of how we get our news, our opinions, our entertainment, I think is for the birds. Because I remember a time when woke ITV over the Black Lives Matter movement was pushing George Floyd down our throats when we were watching Britain's Got Talent. It's like, we don't want that. We don't sign up for that. It's like you have signed your own death warrant. Certainly in terms of my case and my departure from the show and Piers Morgan's departure from woke ITV, it was connected to Meghan Markle and the fact that they wanted to take a very pro-Meghan stance on everything too. Certainly not where the British public is at. As you said, they pushed vaccines on people. They pushed lockdowns on people. I just feel like this idea that we should feel sad about this is wrong. I think we should celebrate it. We should be excited about it. The media revolution is here, and we can look back at the shows that were good at the time with a sense of affection, but actually we also realize why they lost the support of viewers, and that is because they became preach outfits.
But they need to realise why they've lost, right? And they won't, will they? They'll never admit it to themselves. They're this, as Lee said, this metropolitan elite in London who have absolutely no concept of the rest of the country. In fact, did you know that when BBC moved to Salford, the whole big plan about BBC moving to Salford was to employ people from the Northwest? Well, there was a recent question that was asked, how many people are actually from Salford who are employed? And it's under 2%. The rest of them just travel from London. So they're not even employing local people. And that is the trap they're in. What happens in London in that metropolitan TV set does not represent the rest of the country at all.
Lee, do you agree?
I completely agree, and I really like what you just said as well, because it really rung true with me. It's the moral high ground and the lecturing. I mean, I do not want a message about trans issues while I'm watching Doctor Who, for goodness sake, which I haven't watched now for years because it was no good. I think Sylvester what's-his-face did it when I was a child, but I just can't stand it. I mean, the only reason we have the BBC in this house is because my wife still watches it. If it was down to me, it would be gone in an instant. But I've not watched the BBC. I've completely detached myself from the BBC and all mainstream media, I would say, for a good solid 3 years now. Like, I really haven't. I do not engage with mainstream media anymore because I find it aggravates me so much that it doesn't even matter what you're watching. I mean, the BBC is probably the worst for this. Brexit as well. When we were watching, I don't know, Gardener's World, we were being told how ridiculous it was to vote to leave the European Union. I'm fed up of it, and I think the general public are fed up with it as well, because obviously we can see from the viewing figures they're not watching it anymore. I don't know whether Doctor Who actually ended up getting cancelled at the end, but I hear that it didn't go well with the new woke kind of the new star that was leading it. I don't know whether she's still there. But they don't ever learn. And the reason they don't learn, and Bernie's right, for two reasons. One, they haven't got a clue what the British public are thinking. And number two, they're arrogant. They've had this, you can say the same about politics, that, the elite, they're entitled, they're arrogant. And even if you did spell it out for them, the majority of them won't want to accept it because they know that their entire world is crashing down around them. There are some people that have understood what's happening. And, you can look at the US, you look at the numbers that people like Joe Rogan are getting, you look at, Dan's numbers, you look at all of the people that are doing so well on independent media. You think they'd get the message, but especially with the reason the BBC don't is they have to get rid of that license fee. As long as we are paying that license fee, they will do whatever they want to do, despite of the public, to spite the public. It's never going to change unless we just get rid of them.
What a superstar debut from a new star of the independent media, Lee Harris, addicted to news on X. And always brilliant to have Bernie Spofforth. You must follow and subscribe her brilliant channel, If This Is True, which is available on YouTube. Thank you both so much. Greatest Britain Union jackass revealed in just one moment, by the way. But first, your comments. Pauline Nicol writes, so disappointed in reform. I really had high hopes in the beginning. I definitely won't vote for them again. Now, if Tommy Robinson started a party, I would vote for him. Alex says on that terrible press conference today, two lame ducks discussing the future of their countries. They should be booted out and replaced. And on the issue of London and what's happened in London with this terrible, terrible murder of Blue, Meow Moog says, I would have to be dragged to London to go there. It's not London anymore, maybe in name only. And on whether Jake Berry is really the right choice to save the country after joining Reform UK, Growing Global says, I don't know why people don't understand. We don't want any previous MPs in the future. They're all crooked and out of touch severely, can't be trusted. It's down to them lot. We are in this mess. Here, here. Okay, here are your nominees for Union Jackass. A reminder, Lindsay Hoyle. Jane Kendrick nominated him, the Speaker of the House, for his bias. It's extremely noticeable. Ian Dale, nominated by Rosine T8071. Ian Dale, because it's hard to believe he's a Tory. I'm not sure his ideas are even small c conservative. And Jeremy Corbyn, nominated by Claire Wellen, who says that it's because of the new party that he wants to set up with Zara Sultana and his views on immigration. And the results, they are in. In third place with just 15% of the vote, Ian Dale. The runner-up with 37% of the vote, Jeremy Corbyn. But today's Union Jackass with 48% of the House, the Speaker of the House, Lindsay Hoyle. And that means that Lindsay Hoyle is in contention to be named the worst Briton in the world this week. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Emmanuel Macron, he was the Union Jackass on Wednesday, but because he is not British, thank God, he is not eligible to win. So the three nominees to be named the worst Briton in the world this week: from Monday, London's failed Mayor Sadi Khan; from Tuesday, Owen Jones after that car crash appearance on Piers Morgan; and from today, Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, who seems to just have a totally different set of rules when it comes to Nigel Farage compared to the other party leaders. So what I'm going to do straight after the show is put them head to head in a big vote in the community section. I am going to be absolutely fascinated by that. Sadiq versus Jones versus Hoyle. But today's Greatest Britain is a really important one. Nominated by Darren Donaldson, it is the Southport police officers Luke Holden, Tim Parry, and Greg Gillespie. And Darren says, although not a single entity, I'd still like to nominate the three men below who were the first on the scene at the Southport massacre. With all the criticism they receive around two-tier policing, it's easy to forget what these brave men and women endure each time they put on their uniforms. Hear, hear. Okay, coming up in the Uncancelled After Show on Substack, Lady Colin Campbell reveals explosive new claims about why the late Queen really turned against Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. You're not going to want to miss this special episode, ad-free, first, live and on demand over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. But we are back with you tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe right now if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.